The laughter began the moment Ambassador Elena Ward stepped onto the obsidian dais of the Grand Conclave of 12 Worlds. It was not the polite, diplomatic laughter that sometimes rippled through interstellar summits when translation matrices failed and a species accidentally said something absurd. This was the deep, resonant mockery of beings who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, beings who found the very existence of Earth's representative to be the finest joke the cosmos had produced in centuries. High Chancellor Zareth, a creature of iridescent scales and six-jointed arms, seated on a throne carved from the bones of a dead moon, raised one clawed hand. The laughter died, but the contempt remained, hanging in the recycled air of the conclave chamber like the smell of something burning. Ambassador Ward, Zareth said, his voice translated into human English by the Council's own systems, smooth and deliberate. Your species has filed a formal protest regarding the Vanthori exclusion zone. Earth claims sovereignty over 12 star systems that your kind has not yet reached, cannot yet reach, and, by our calculations, will not reach for another 400 years. He paused. Tell me, why should the Galactic Council take seriously the territorial claims of a species that still uses chemical rockets? The chamber erupted again. Elena Ward did not move. She was 43 years old, with dark eyes that had once watched her daughter's first steps on a beach in Portugal. She had spent 11 years being underestimated by everyone in every room she had ever entered. She was very good at waiting. Behind her, arrayed in a row along the outer gallery, were the 6 members of her delegation. Jo, her logistics specialist, a compact woman with close-cropped hair and a tablet permanently fixed in her hands, was already calculating. Me, the xenolinguist, tall and quiet as a cathedral, was listening to every harmonic in Zareth's voice that the translator stripped away. New York, their weapons and defense analyst, young and sharp-jawed, sat with her hands folded, her expression unreadable. Day, the economist and trade negotiator, was frowning at a holographic chart only he could see. Hai, the historian of First Contact Doctrine, was taking notes. And Wa, their communications officer, was doing something quietly extraordinary. She was recording everything, encoding it on a frequency the Council did not know Earth used, and transmitting it live to 14 billion people back home. None of them looked frightened. When the laughter faded a second time, Elena Ward stepped forward to the microphone and spoke. High Chancellor Zareth. Distinguished members of the conclave. Her voice was calm. You are correct. We cannot yet reach those star systems. We are aware of that. We filed the claim not because we are there, but because you are. Silence. 3 of those 12 systems, she continued, contain planets that your Vanthori corporate extraction arm has been mining for 60 years. Under Article 9 of the Orendal Accords, which Earth signed in good faith 14 years ago, any member species may stake sovereign claim to uninhabited systems within their projected expansion corridor if those systems are being commercially exploited by a third party without disclosure. She tilted her head. You did not disclose. We have the extraction logs. Jo? Jo stood. In one motion, she pushed a data packet across the Council's own network, a thing that was technically possible under the Accord's communications clause, a clause the Council had never imagined a junior species would use. Every screen in the chamber lit up with 70 years of undisclosed mining records. The silence became something different. Heavier. Zareth's scales shifted color, pale, then deep red. This is an act of provocation. This is discovery of evidence, Elena said. And under Article 17, we are required to share it with all signatory species within 48 hours of obtaining it. She glanced toward the gallery where representatives of the Melvari, the Turundi, and the Shin collective sat. All 3 had also been excluded from the Vanthori corridor. All 3 were now reading Jo's data with great interest. Me, would you like to address the harmonic clauses? Me rose. He spoke not in English, not in the Council's trade tongue, but in Old Vanthori, the ceremonial legal dialect that predated the conclave itself, a dialect in which certain treaty violations carried mandatory penalties. His voice filled the chamber with resonances that made 3 of the alien delegates grip their armrests. High Chancellor Zareth stood up from his bone-carved throne. "You dare." "We dare," Elena said simply. "We have been daring for 100,000 years. It is, historically speaking, our thing." What happened next took 48 hours, not overnight, but to the Galactic Council, which operated on timescales measured in centuries. 48 hours was overnight. Days economic models, transmitted to the Melvari delegation within 6 hours of the session's collapse, demonstrated clearly that the Vanthuri extraction operation had depressed mineral prices galaxy-wide for 6 decades, disadvantaging every mining-capable species except the Vanthuri themselves. The Melvari shared the models with the Turundi. The Turundi shared them with the Shin Collective. By hour 30, a coalition that had never existed before was demanding an emergency session. New York, who had said almost nothing during the entire conclave proceedings, spent those 30 hours in a small office off the Council's secondary hub, meeting quietly with the security liaisons of 7 different species. She did not make threats. She simply shared Earth's defense capability assessments, how quickly human shipyards could produce, what human engineers had been doing quietly in the outer solar system, what humanity's war doctrine looked like when humans decided that a war was worth fighting. The liaisons read the assessments. Several of them asked follow-up questions. New York answered them all with the pleasant, unhurried manner of someone describing the weather. High, meanwhile, had submitted a formal historical brief to the Council's legal archive, 1,600 pages documenting every prior instance in which the Vanthuri had claimed exclusive corridor rights, with cross-references to the treaty texts they had selectively cited and the clauses they had quietly omitted. It was the kind of document that could only be written by someone who had spent years anticipating exactly this moment. High had spent 9 years anticipating exactly this moment. And Waiwa kept broadcasting. Not just to Earth. 14 hours in, with Elena's authorization, we opened the frequency to any species with the receiver codes. Those codes were embedded, hidden in plain sight, in the original Orendal Accords communication appendix, put there by the human delegation who had signed the treaty 14 years ago, inserted in the dead technical language of a footnote that no one had ever read. 42 species received the broadcast. 31 tuned in. At hour 46, High Chancellor Zareth requested a private meeting with Ambassador Elena Ward. He came alone, which, for a being of his rank, was itself a message. Elena brought Joe, because Joe always saw what Elena missed, and because Joe had once talked a port authority out of impounding their ship with nothing but a spreadsheet and a thermos of coffee. Zareth settled across a bare table from them in a neutral room and was quiet for a long moment. His scales had gone back to iridescent, thoughtful, not hostile. "You planned this," he said finally. "Not just the conclave. The accords. The footnote." "The team before our team planned the footnote," Elena said honestly. "We planned the rest." "Why?" He seemed genuinely curious. "You could have simply requested renegotiation." Quietly. Elena looked at him for a moment. She thought about a beach in Portugal. She thought about her daughter asking her once, "Mom, what do you actually do at work?" She thought about the answer she had given, "I make sure we're still around to have this conversation in 100 years. "Because quiet didn't work," she said. "We tried quiet for 8 years. You scheduled us to the end of every session. You translated our position papers into a dialect our own computers couldn't parse back. You excluded us from the mineral corridor briefings and then cited the briefings as precedent." She folded her hands on the table. "High Chancellor, we are a young species. We have made an extraordinary number of mistakes. But the one thing we have never been able to do, the one thing that is apparently just not in our nature, is to stay quiet when something is wrong." Zareth was silent for a very long time. "What do you want?" he asked. "Full disclosure on the Vanthuri corridor," Elena said. "Seat on the expansion committee. Revised translation protocols reviewed by me's team. She paused. And an apology. In the chamber. On record. Another long silence. The apology, Zareth said carefully, is the most difficult. I know, Elena said. That's why I saved it for last. Humans do that too. The apology was delivered the following morning, in the chamber, on record, in 37 languages simultaneously. Joe watched the feeds. Me analyzed the harmonics and confirmed it was sincere. New York sent a single-word update to the security liaisons, done. Day revised his models. High archived the transcript. We'll broadcast it. Back home, 14 billion people watched it live. Nobody scoffed. Earth had come to the Galactic Council as a minor species, a footnote, a punchline. They left as something the galaxy would spend the next century trying to understand. And that, as any historian will tell you, is exactly how humanity prefers it.